Revealing his real enemies? Ken Burton talks about the Psalms.
Hello, I'm going to share a few thoughts, how Psalms speak to me. This is all connected with the way which I like to read the Bible, and specifically the Psalms, which are poems and songs which talk about things happening on a day-to-day basis and the emotions connected with them. As a conductor, it's my job to prepare music and to make sense of music, both music with words and instrumental music, which doesn't have words, where I have to map out a journey, a story, which enables me to effectively move from one section to the next and know exactly which instruments have prominence, which particular parts I need to bring out in order to connect the different parts of that story. So I have to find meaning. And songs with words, even though the words might instantly give meaning because it's saying something, you still got to find, I always talk to choirs about finding what I call the subplot. So don't just take the headline words, but what are they saying underneath, and how can you make this whole song into an experience which has meaning from beginning to end, where there is a definite beginning, a definite pathway where the song's going, and a definite ending, and something that you want to leave the audience with. So that's how I do music generally. So I just translate that into how I actually read the Psalms. How I like to study them is, what do they say and what do they say? So what do they say? That is the theological, academic side of stuff. What is it really saying? When I look through my interlinear concordance and looking at the original words, Emir Azan, Yehovah bin Arig, etc., and looking at what those particular words might mean, because it's not just a matter of just translating straight from one language to another. It doesn't work that simply, unfortunately. There's a lot more you've got to do with the words to have an understanding of what it really is saying, as well as have a little bit of historical context as well. That study bit takes time, and it's very, very rewarding and helps to grow in deeper understanding. However, as I've said before, if we get deeper understanding and deeper knowledge, that can easily just lead to being pompous or arrogant. But if it talks to us in a way where we say, right, what is this saying to me right here and now? And if I read the same verse tomorrow, what is it saying to me there and then? Then this word then becomes a lot more living, a lot more useful, a lot more needed, because we can study things and feel enriched by our study of anything. You know, we can study rocket science and we'll feel enriched and elevated mentally by that. But what do we need to do once we've read this? And how do we apply it? And now we always ask this question, how do we apply this? How do we use this in everyday life? But a lot of times we're still trying to give answers which still sound like they're trying to be overly theological and academic. And what I'm trying to do is just be real and raw in this, because it's real and raw language. And looking at various key words which we miss out because we're looking at the big headlines. And it's those little phrases, the two little words that we didn't quite pay a lot of attention to, where you think, oh, actually, this changes or adds to the meaning of this. So, before I run out of time, before I bore you to death, I am going to look at Psalm chapter 5. Now, have you ever had one of these situations, those who are familiar with the reading of a psalm at the end of a day, where you've said, oh yeah, this would be a good psalm to read because it starts really nicely. And then you read it and then it gets darker and darker and darker, and you're hoping that maybe that darkness will only last for a couple of verses and then it will come back to something a bit more hopeful, because you don't want to leave everybody feeling really down and depressed, and it doesn't come and you're like, oops, I should have selected something a little bit more appropriate. But, over the years, I've learned how to make sense of those for my own personal self. I've learned how to make sense of those Psalms because we very often think of the enemy, for example, as who or whom. But a lot of times the enemy can be what?
Have you ever had one of those days where you are afraid of what the next message will be? Well, there's one text message you just need to read. You won't feel down. It will show you what's up. The Word of God. A new voice message. Unlimited minutes of joy, full coverage, and here's a special offer. When you hand in your old life, you'll get a free upgrade.
We very often think of the enemy as who or whom. But a lot of times the enemy can be what? We often think of the enemy without, but the enemy could actually be, within. And interestingly, the word enemy or enmity is used right at the beginning of the Bible to talk about deception and struggle and that battle, that fight between right and wrong, between good and evil. And that can become an enemy in itself. And we look at the letter which was written to the Romans, written by the early Christian convert, Paul, to the Romans. And he writes about this struggle. He says, look, I want to do good. I do genuinely want to do good, but there is something inside of me which is fighting. Okay, so the good that I want to do, I don't do it. And he says, I'm in need of help. Because he says, who's going to deliver me? Who's going to deliver me from this body taking me to my death? And then one of my favorite verses in the Bible says, oh, thanks be to God, who we have the victory. And a lot of the Psalms do the same. And they start off with the problem and we need rescuing, but then they say, well, let's reflect on the fact that we're serving a God who is able to give the victory. So let's just keep holding on because it seems like this now, it seems like he's nowhere to be seen. It seems like all this trouble and all this hassle in my life. But let's hold on because there's nowhere else for me to go, to be honest. But I need to cling to God for help and trust him that victory will come in whatever way he chooses to bring it. So we just put our faith in him because that's all we can do. But it doesn't mean to say that we cannot express ourselves and be honest and open about our situations. So that's what I've learned to understand about the enemy. And also, the second thing is I've learned how to become neutral in this. Because a lot of times, again, we look at the enemy and we're looking at ourselves as the side of the righteous. And the enemies are all those over there, and all those who are against us, and all those who are against God, and so forth. But actually, it's not. You've got to look at yourself as a neutral and say that when I behave like this in my life, I'm actually on the side of the enemy. When I behave like this, then I can legitimately and openly and honestly say I'm on the side of the righteous. But I can be on two sides. That struggle within me, the enemy within me, can actually put me on both sides. And a lot of times we think we're kind of exempt from the other side because, well, we're just on this side and then the other side is everybody else out there. And that's not how it is. When we look at it and think about how it can apply to our lives, all these verses can apply to our lives, depending on what our lives are at that particular moment in time. So looking at Psalm 5, and I'm going to read word for word, but just the general thoughts on how I look at it. Give ear to my words, O Lord, consider my meditation. Hear the voice of my cry, my King, my God. I'm praying to you. All right. So first, I look at that and thinking, cry. hear my voice, is a desperation in that, because you don't say hear my voice. You say hear the voice of my cry, and cry is the most expressive emotion we can do. You know, when you speak to somebody, the moment they start to cry, you think that that's a kind of the sort of extreme of emotion that they're showing when, you know, because we try to fight back the tears, and we try to fight things back, and then when the tears flow, then we consider, well, the person's really now pouring themselves out. And crying, as we know, is a body's response, a body's way of releasing something that is inside, and it very often expresses itself through tears. And when somebody's crying out to you, there's desperation, there's begging there. So I'm desperate. I'm really desperate in this point. And it says, my voice you will hear in the morning, I will direct my prayer unto you. A lot of hymns are based on Psalms. The Psalms is the inspiration for a large majority of hymns. And there is a hymn, Lord, in the morning, thou shalt hear my voice ascending high. To thee will I direct my prayer, to thee lift up my eyes. It's this verse, Psalm 5, verse 3. So I'm directing my prayer to you, I'm looking up. I'm praying to you in the morning, and you might think morning, you might just think it's part of the day, but it's the first part of the day. So for me, I'm hearing, this is my first port of call. I need, I've got stuff ahead of me, which is the day, and I need you now. I need to call upon your name right now, because I need direction. Before I even start, I'm in a place where I need your direction. And then the next verse, you're not God that has pleasure in wickedness. Evil will not dwell with you. The foolish cannot stand in your sight. You hate all the workers of iniquity. This is one of the bits I'm talking about. You can easily start thinking that this applies to everybody out there who doesn't go to a church and is not studying the Bible and whatever. That is talking to me, okay? That is saying, Ken, God is not going to dwell with you. If wickedness is in your life, evilness is in your life, you're being foolish, you are working iniquity, then you are not going to stand in God's sight, okay? Whatever it is, whatever the spirit is within you that is causing that is your enemy. You're an enemy unto yourself, if that makes sense, what I'm saying. So you are now, that now applies to you. It doesn't apply to anybody else. It applies to me personally, that foolishness. So even though it says the foolish, but becoming neutral, you say foolishness or wickedness or evilness cannot dwell with you. So that then applies to me rather than the evil or the foolish. And I'm now thinking of somebody else. I'm thinking of me in that. I'm putting myself into that. You will destroy them that speak leasing or lies. You will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. Okay, so David is of course talking about his particular situation. You know, he's being pursued by an enemy at the time. So yeah, he's talking about a real life situation, but I'm not being pursued by an enemy, right? I'm not hiding somewhere. I'm sitting quite comfortably. I'm not hiding, so I don't have people who are pursuing me around the corner. Okay, not even a tax collector or the debt man. You know, none of them are pursuing me. I'm not being pursued at the moment by anybody. It's my enemy. Okay, I do get occasional cold callers who I'm trying to avoid. Yeah, but you know, so what does that actually mean? Does it mean I'm exempt from this? No, it doesn't. It means that in my life, where I can confess openly on air that I can be a bit of an idiot at times in my life, I can be foolish at times, then actually in those times, then actually I will feel away from God. And that will lead to that desperate cry that I need you, because there's something inside of me which is not connected. And then the next verse says, but as for me, I will come into your house, and in fair I will worship towards your holy temple. So of course David is saying that the enemy is pursuing him, but as for him, he's just gonna go into the house of the Lord. But again, how does this work for me?
Coming soon? Jesus. Available everywhere. For every eye shall see him.
Have you ever had one of those days where you are afraid of what the next message will be? Well, there's one text message you just need to read. You won't feel down. It will show you what's up. The Word of God. A new voice message. Unlimited minutes of joy, full coverage, and here's a special offer. When you hand in your old life, you'll get a free upgrade.
So, of course, David is saying that the enemy is pursuing him, but as for him, he's just gonna go into the house of the Lord. But again, how does this work for me? Well, I'm both people. Can be that foolishness can be part of my life, but also this is a solution. All right, I come into the house in the multitude of your mercy. All right, I've been foolish, but there is mercy and grace and power, and it says in your fear I will worship toward the holy temple. So in other words, I recognize that when I come into your presence there is mercy. However, there is something required for me. That mercy is not just right, you're off the hook and I go off and be stupid again. That mercy causes me to bow in awe and in reverence, both in my heart, first and foremost, in my posture, and humble myself before God. And then it says, lead me, O Lord, in righteousness because of my enemies. So this is another song that we know. Lead me, Lord, lead me in thy righteousness. So lead me, O Lord, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before my face. A lot of times we say, lead me, Lord, in your righteousness. Make your way straight before my face. But we miss out the because of my enemies bit. So why is David asking Lord to lead him? Lead me, I'm saying, Lord, lead me because I've got enemies in my own life or things in my own life. They could be struggles, they could be self-esteem issues, they could be not having a control over something, enemies in my own life. So leading me in your righteousness, that's a contrast, my unrighteousness, but I want your righteousness. Make your way straight before my face. So I just want to know what you want from me. I just want to know what you want me to do. Make it straight for me, make it plain, make it easy, make it seeable, make it accessible. And it says, because of my enemies, because there's no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wicked. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongues. Come on, that's me. Okay, wickedness can be inside of myself. Faithfulness or lack of faithfulness in my mouth. Okay, throat is an open grave. Have we ever said things to people that are hurtful? I know I have in my life. As a human being, says things that pain and that hurt others. And sometimes when you're feeling disrespected, you might, or dissed, as we say over here in the UK, you might think, I need to say something that actually counteracts that, and I need to win this. So it's easy. And this is all of our stories. It's common to us as human beings that and it's part of the way that we're built, there are times when we might feel a little bit tired or we haven't eaten, and and then our throats can become like open graves, like open sepulchres. Part of this is actually recognizing that actually it's not the other person. This is what I'm saying. It could be the enemy within. It could be the things that are causing that tension within what you ought to be or what you want to be. And there's things that are fighting you, and you just you've got to just kind of take care of that, because in your own strength you're feeling helpless and you're crying out to God. And he says, let all those who put their trust in you rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy because you defend them. Let them also that love your name be joyful in you.
Life has a habit of making you feel like the whole world is on your shoulders. But did you know that you can feel better by doing one simple thing? Smile. Available immediately and free for life. Try now.
says, let all those who put their trust in you rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy because you defend them. Let them also that love your name be joyful in you. When I read that, I'm reading, let all those who put their trust in you rejoice. Let also those that love your name be joyful. In other words, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. I look at that and I love reading verses like this, texts like this, writings like this, poetry like this. Everybody puts your trust in you, rejoice. It's kind of saying, look, trusting in God is a happy thing. It's not a serious sad thing that we often make it into, trust God and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a joyful thing. So if we're going to put your trust in you, we can have that confidence. We can be happy. We can be happy. Look what it says. Let them ever shout for joy. I'm going to look at what the word for shout is in that one. Oh, it's ranan, because there's lots of different words for shout. So that's ranan. And ranan means to cry out, shout for joy, give a ringing cry. There's another one, to be overcome. So it's the idea of being overcome with joy. And then there's another application of the word, to give a ringing cry in joy or exultation or distress. So you can see even the poetry, let those who love the Lord and trust the Lord, let them shout. And it's got this meaning of cry, give a ringing cry. And it begins with, I'm crying. So this is a cry of distress. And then it can now become a cry of joy. Another meaning, ringing cry, rejoicing, to shout, to make what's called a stridulous sound, a kind of high-pitched noise. But yeah, it's saying that, hey, when my life turns around, then I actually can change from the state of crying out to you, and I can actually now move from a state of rejoicing. I don't have to always remain in that state of I'm always crying out. And a lot of times we do this in our Christian life. We're always looking for that thing that beats us up and it tells us where we are and tells us a few things about ourselves. And we have this really negative, continually negative, almost abusive, if I can use that word, sort of view where everybody's been beaten up all the time. And then we can't move to that place of rejoicing because we always got to look at ourselves as sinners. And the Bible doesn't teach us that. It doesn't teach us that at all. It teaches that in your state of coming to God, which is initially, God and us in our unworthy state, that we can choose to remain unworthy, or we can choose God's mercy. We can choose God's grace. We can call upon God, and God is willing to change our situation and change our state. Once he does that, we actually don't have to be dwelling on that thing which God has said, right, swept that away, forgiven, clean, what sin? And then we can actually move to that place of freedom, of being free in our praise and rejoicing. And very often we have people who misunderstand each other within the faith. So if I'm leading out in worship, I'm not going to say, well, why are you not singing up? And why are you not screaming the place down? And why are you not shouting with joy? Isn't God good? Not recognizing maybe that person's particular situation, the person's just received some bad news, even by text on the way up on the steps and the way into the church or something like that. And that's still on their mind. They haven't necessarily got to the place where they're moving from. Or they may not have received bad news, but they might in their mind be going through that struggle. The enemy might be there and they may not have won the victory, and they may feel, well, if I try to sing the victory song, it's just not going to come out right. So we sometimes misunderstand them and then try to get them to be joyful. On the other hand, there are people who have got that victory and who are ready to shout and dance and jump. And we're like, what are they doing? Humble yourself and be reverent in the house of God. But they've reached that place. So we are a community of people who are actually going through, different stages in our journey. And those stages they change from week to week. So I might be jumping and shouting for joy this week. Next week, I might be the one who's kind of a little bit more like that. Or I might be like this week and then jumping for joy next week. So we've got to have that understanding. And I think by looking at the Psalms in this way, we get the understanding that you can be the one who's in the cry at the beginning of the Psalm. You could be the one who is the enemy of God or the enemy of your own self because of what your life is like at that particular time. Or you could be at the stage of the one who is trusting in God and rejoicing and happy. But all of that applies to the same individual. It's not just a matter of we saying us and them, but it can all be about us. And that's how I apply it in my own particular situation. And that's how it becomes real and meaningful. So I think about what are the enemies, what in my life needs to change, what situations are at enmity with me at this present moment in time, and asking God to really take care of business and give me that faith to be able to trust in Him. All right, so thank you so much. And actually, as the words, as I was looking through that, I recognized that lead me in your righteousness and make your ways straight before my face actually did inspire a song which I wrote for the Croydon SDA Gospel Choir. And I actually listened to this song a lot. I listened to this song a lot because it speaks to me, and it speaks to me, and very often people are like, well, this is your own song. What do you mean your own song speaks to you? You're supposed to write songs for others to listen to, and you're supposed to be blessed by other people's. I am blessed by other people's music, but a lot of times I'm blessed by the music which, I've written. I've said it in inverted commas, because it's not my words. Okay, it's not my words. There's the sentiment of that are words for me, for my own, and it's going to become real in my own life before I have any right to ask it to be real in anybody else's life. So I listen to this song a lot, and it's talking about God leading us in His perfect way and doing what He has to do. Lord, I give to you my life. Do whatever you have to do. All right, and lead me now. I'm lost and helpless without you. And actually, this is my Psalm 5, and I didn't realize it actually till just now, that the sentiments of the crying out, the pouring out of the heart, and asking God to lead and guide and resigning to God is actually the sentiments of Psalm 5 and the sentiments of the song. That's what I'm saying. When you have that real life experiences, then you express the same things in different ways. So this is a sort of Psalm 5. It was not based on Psalm 5 intentionally, but the things that happen in life or the thought processes that go through my head, some of them are basically the same as what was going through the mind of David when he wrote this. So therefore, it comes out using similar expressions and similar language, as well as borrowing from the language of the Psalms. So.
This is my prayer today. Please guide me, Lord Jesus, in your perfect way.